Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you all ask the questions and we answer. I am joined in my question and answer booth by my fabulous friend, senior lit teacher, and physical therapist extraordinaire, Kristen Williams.
Crowd goes wild. It is so nice to be here, Laura. It's so funny. I see you like pause and like, what am I going to say?
What
this
am I
time?
going to say?
It's like you're building the suspense.
Yes, I should say I almost said seductress. That isn't the word I'm looking for, but the gorgeous redhead, Kristen Williams.
There we go. Just call me the peanut butter to your jelly. How about that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Definitely. PB&J, the best.
That's right.
All right.
Right.
I will start off.
Yep,
okay. So we have a question from Kath, Smart Yoga with Kath, our lovely French lit teacher. She says, have you ever talked about glute medius tendonitis on the podcast? I have a pain in the right side of my right hip, and it goes all along the IT band, and it's painful. Trying to take it easy on the right side and ice it and doing some gentle reinforcement of abductors and glute max. My right hip is very flexible and external rotation. And there was more to it but she really wants us to know about, like, how do we deal with this gluteus medius tendonitis stuff that can happen.
Yeah, that is not a fun diagnosis. You might sometimes we hear it diagnosed as that. You hear it called greater trochanteric bursitis, IT band syndrome. But basically what she is describing, for people who don't know what the glute medius is, it's a lateral hip muscle. So it's kind of right along the fan. I was thinking like a fan of the edge of your pelvis. And it's the main muscle that stabilizes you when you're standing on one leg. So we will see people who have really weak gluteus medius will get this, what we call Trendelenburg gait. Well, they'll get this lean because they can't stabilize the pelvis when they're standing on one leg, because that muscle doesn't work well. So it is not uncommon for us to see people, yogis, dancers, people who might spend a lot of time on one leg or are transitioning on one leg, maybe developing this. We also see it in a whole host of other athletic endeavors. And it can present as tenderness to the area. It can be uncomfortable lying on that side. As with anything else, it sounds like she is strengthening the glutes and the abductors. As with anything else, we really would love to look and see what else is going on. When we cannot ever minimize the fact that the pelvis needs to be neutral. We always talk about this, neutral pelvis. In order to put the other joints, and that includes the hip, at their most, beneficial position in functioning. And so you might want to look, Kath, at the other hip. I have seen this countless times where people will come to me and say, my left hip is killing me. And then when I start to look, it's because their left hip's doing all the work. The right hip is failing. Obviously, we want to look at core strength. The core isn't engaged. But look at that opposite hip. Look and see that, really examine your yoga practice if that seems to aggravate it. Where might you be taking the brunt on that side? Where are you not tapping into? Why is that muscle getting irritated? Is it because it's weak, or is it because it's overused? Is it because it's tight, or is it because it's on tone all the time because it's trying to hold for failing other muscles? So again, always look globally. In the short term, there's lots of stuff you can do to, for pain relief, whether it is, we do some soft tissue stuff, foam rolling, using a ball, doing the glute strengthening, like you're saying. But I would really love to look at this more from a biomechanical standpoint and see what else might be causing it. Because if you don't get the root cause, it will come back. Laura, what do you have to say? Anything else on that?
Yeah, you pretty much were saying everything when I was looking for the second part of the question, which was that she has scoliosis and she's wondering how that's related. But it was funny because we didn't need to know that because you just mentioned that. So the second part of the question is what's the link between scoliosis and pelvic hip issues? Because she does have some scoliosis. So everything you just said, and this is first, everything you said, I'll just reiterate, is that you have to look at both sides. Like you said, I see this all the time. Somebody will say, my right shoulder is bothering me, and all I'm doing, and I come in and I keep having to remind myself, oh, they said right shoulder, but all I'm seeing is this stuff, like this imbalance on the left. And it's like sometimes, often, where you're experiencing the pain is not the actual imbalanced or the most significant area of imbalance. And so for Kat, I do think that, glute medius tendonitis is, I know she likes to run, she is practicing yoga, she's walking, she's in Paris. I mean, all these things I would say, like, what are your shoes like? Because let me tell you, I'm sure hers are pretty reasonable, but she does work in a corporate world. Like if you're wearing high heels, if you're wearing anything that's kind of putting you in imbalance already, just from the get-go, from the ground up, your pelvis is going to respond. So the thing about high heels is it's going to pitch your pelvis forward. It's practically impossible not to counter that weight going forward, or that weight being distributed weird in the metatarsals. So I would say, what shoes you're wearing, even when you're running, what shoes you're wearing. Funny thing, I've worked with a lot of people with IT band syndrome, quote, this gluteus medius tendonitis, and I'll say, like, do you always run on the same side of the road? It's like you have to examine everything, because everything is a part of the puzzle and therefore a part of the source. So it's like if you always run on the same side of the road, and that is like has a little what is that, cantilever or slope,
Like a crown.
yeah, you're going to be off. You're not running evenly. Like the way you will land is going to put more strain on one hip, maybe the lower hip. The upper hip is going to be kind of more dropping in. So the surface of what you walk and run on, I can't even say, it is so important, because it's the surface area that then comes up into your body. So you can't just look at it like it's just what you're running on. It's like, what is that doing in the entire chain? And so again, if your glute medius is weak, your leg will kind of drop in more. Your foot will tend to pronate more, or it could be, from the ground that's coming up, and that can put more strain in that area. So with scoliosis, yes, there's definitely, it often is affecting your rib cage more than your pelvis, but your pelvis responds to your ribs. So do all the things you're doing, open up the side of your rib cage and the pelvis that is the shortened side, because that could be pulling on one hip, which could be the hip that you're not experiencing it in, right? So it's, again, like, it's the imbalance. And the more you can find that balance, especially through the center, knowing that you're going to be torqued a little bit with scoliosis, it is, the goal is always to get your spectrum of balance is a little bit bigger than, say, somebody who doesn't have scoliosis, but you can still get that balance. But look at everything, not just how you're moving and how you're strengthening, but how you're living, how you're sitting, how you're moving, how you're walking, how you're running, what you're, how you're lying. Like people that, like you said, lie on one side all night long, and they wake up and it's very, very painful. There's a bursa there. You might be lying on the bursa weird, that's already being a little provoked. So examine it all. And since we know you, get back to us.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. I'll go ahead and read our second one. I pulled it up on the computer because she emailed us. This is our friend Rita. And she's actually writing for about a friend who is having some pain radiating in the lower back down the leg. And so she kind of was demonstrating the area being the QL, which is the low back between your lower ribs and the crest of your pelvis. And then along the side of the pelvis down the IT band, a bit under the butt, she's saying, but also she feels that this friend of hers mostly on the side of the calf. And so she did give a little history that she's, had 2 C-sections, the second a little over 2 years ago. She's a regular exerciser, but not as much as she used to. And she was also diagnosed with an umbilical hernia on top of it and some other, thyroid issues. So she has tried the Lit postnatal series, which she did find interesting and enjoyed, but she didn't stick with it. And so, Rita's wanting us to see if we can offer any other suggestions on how to get, number one, more core strength with the hernia, which she's not going to have surgery on. And, also if there's anything that can be done to help this radiating pain. So, again, our body's gone through a lot, and long periods of breastfeeding as well. So, there's a good, we like more history because that gives us more to work with. But we can start off with the core strengthening via the umbilical hernia. I'm going to let you go ahead and start because I know you have history with something similar.
Yeah.
And then also remembering to talk about the leg pain.
So the hernias, there's different ones. You have the umbilical one, which is your belly button, and many pregnant women will have some small hernia because of that. Because at some point, there's so much of a stretch that our own little umbilicus starts to go push. It's just pushed out, and that can return to its kind of starting position, or it can stay a little pushed out. And that might indicate that there's a little gapping in the wall there, in the first superficial wall. So for some people, that's a small hernia, which it sounds like with her. I had a small one as well, and I could have probably never gotten it fixed. I had an inguinal hernia, so they're like, we're just going to pull in that umbilical one as well. My mom with triplets had a very large one that she never got fixed, and 40 years after having us or something like that, she did have to have it like a kind of an emergency situation. She would just like push it back in sometimes when she would feel, yeah, I'm like, Mom, okay. So, but that was, so she needed it and she didn't get it because she's like a tough old bird. So finally the pushing it back in didn't work and she had to have it repaired. So hernias, as long as they're small, don't worry about them because everything we do anyway is pulling everything back into deeper pockets. That's what we want. Hernia is pushing away. So think if you have different kind of layers, if you have the ground layer, which is closest to the bone, all the way to like the skin layer, we are pulling into the ground layer with our core work. And it's not just, sucking belly in, it's everything on all sides pulling into the ground, pulling into the spine, pulling around the pelvis. So first of all, I would say, you got to stick with lit. You really do. And maybe do a little bit. I'd be curious, like, was it too much for her? Did she not have time? As a mom, you have, and now with this radiating pain, you have all the signals that are telling you this is the time you have got to take for yourself. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, but you need to, especially after a C-section. I would also be curious about what you did after the C-section for the scar tissue. Was there any mobilization? Because scarring under any type of incision happens, and it can happen in a way that really impacts your brain's firing to that area. Because basically when you're cutting through, you're not cutting through, unless you have an emergency C-section, you're not cutting through the muscle, but you're cutting through skin and fascia and into the uterus itself. And you will, you're cutting nerves as well. So there's this, like, it's like twilight zone. So you have got to get that area stronger and see if you can mobilize the scar so it isn't pulling and restricting the connection to the deeper abdominals. But if you do the kind of work we do in core, your hernia, if it's very small, it's not going to be a problem. It's going to actually help have it be stronger.
Well, and I think it can also help that radiating pain,
Oh, yeah. I was
she's
going to just let you
probably,
take it from there. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
All
she's
related.
got two little kids. She had like you said, how well did she retrain? What does her pelvis look like right now? What is she walking around? Um, is she carrying extra baby weight? Not that the weight would be an issue, but has that changed? Is she still in the posture of carrying a baby? That means what I mean is she still carrying the baby weight, meaning she's still in that anterior tilt of the pelvis. And what is that doing to her, chain of that's going down the leg, because she's presenting with symptoms of either a lumbar radiculopathy or a sciatica or something of the sort, where the neural pathways are unhappy. How tight is her low back? So it is hard. It is really hard at this stage when you have little kids. She's probably working as well, finding that time. And there's a big cycle when, especially for anybody who has an injury, a big change in their life, being pregnant, having a baby, and then we don't go back, our lives don't go back to what it was before. And there's this where we, can we break that? Can we make a new habit where taking care of ourselves becomes a habit, and we get out of the cycle of not taking care of ourselves, so doing for others? And there's nothing worse than a new mom, where we stop taking care of ourselves. So, maybe she tries like the Build Your Capacity series, and she just or the Bridge, where they're shorter, and she just does those 15 to 20-minute classes, but she gets into a habit. And maybe she finds an accountability partner. Maybe she can find an accountability partner. Maybe that's Rita. Maybe Rita says, hey, I'm willing to get up with you at 5 o'clock. Let's do it for 30 minutes. Let's do it together. And, I did that. I would go running with friends, or there was a time where I would run after work with a friend. Accountability helps, but also keeping it small helps. Because Laura, you're absolutely right. If she's got scar tissue, if she's never rehabbed after having the baby, what is her body presenting like? Most likely already like she's still carrying around the baby weight, and that those lumbar nerves are getting irritated, and it's this. My heart goes out to his
It
friend,
does. And I know
because it is such a hard time. We've been there, girl.
it is a
And
hard time. And we see this a lot and I don't know, Rita, if this is your friend or not, I don't want to make any assumptions, but this is a big population of people that will try, whether it's lit or something else, and then not stick with it because it was frustrating, right? It was like hard. It was more exhausting. And you're like, and there's good hard that you need to do. And that good hard is going to make everything else easier. So pick your good hard, which is get up a little bit earlier. It can be 15 minutes. Reorganize your core and your center. You do not want to sit this one out. You do not want to wait 10 years. You do not want to get a shot in your back when it could absolutely be healed by you, but it's going to be a good hard. It's not going to be easy because it's rewiring a connection to an area that has been, for lack of a better word, numbed out, and you're disconnected to it. But all of us, especially moms, there are lots of things that are challenging that we don't have to do, but this is one we have to do because it will benefit you, and it will benefit you in the long run. It'll benefit you today. It'll benefit you as a mom, as a more patient mom, and your body needs it. Your body needs it because 2 C-sections, 2 carrying of babies, caring and caring for babies is exhausting. You can't be exhausted that you don't take care of yourself, though. Like, make this happen. 15 minutes. Give yourself that and then build up. So if you tried something, whether it was with us or somebody else, and you're like, this isn't working for me, it's too hard, blah, 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 say, you know what, be tender. It's hard today. I'll do what I can. I'm not going to speak ill of myself. I'm going to give myself some grace, but I'm going to keep coming back, and I'm going to repeat and repeat and repeat. And I will do this type of hard because it will benefit you in the long run, and it will make your life have more ease for sure.
And it will eliminate your pain.
Yes. And that's who wants to live with pain? Because guess what? Pain's tiring. Pain's exhausting.
Oh,
Pain
yeah.
can be all consuming. Even if it's a kind of low grade radiating pain, it is your brain. You're going to be, that is something your brain is going to, it's like, what's happening down there? And then and then it sends it back up. So remember, pain is just information that your brain is getting. Give it different information. Focus on strengthening and stability. And guess what? The brain's like, I'm going to focus on this. And then I'm going to make space for those nerves or whatever that are getting compressed. So tackle it. We're here for you. And Rita or new mom or any moms, new or, been there doing it a while, write us, direct message us, ask us questions. Try out the postnatal. You can be 2 months postnatal. You could be 20 years postnatal. You could actually never have had a baby.
You can be a man.
Right. You could be a man. It is an amazing series because what it does is reorganize the pelvis, and the pelvis is the center of your body. It's the center of your current of energy exchange. It's the center of your mass. It is fundamental for good movement and for feeling awake, alive, and pain-free.
Amen, sister.
Amen. We're on a pulpit here. All right, my friends, any of you can write us any questions, and we love getting your questions. Where can they write the questions?
You can write me at I'm not dot. I'm KB Williams 99 on Instagram. You got the dot. And Laura at?
I'm Laura.Hyman. So you can direct message us. We are really good on there, but you could also write an email at support@lityoga.com. We get that as well. We would love your questions. Keep them coming. We have this every single Wednesday, and we would love for you to share it with your friends. Share it with like somebody who could relate to anything we talk about. We really appreciate your support. It goes a long way.
As always, we're pulling for you.